And we're live. Hi everyone, this is Amateur Gamer, and I'll be returning to Old World. And this will be hopefully the first of many videos I'll be making regarding a mod I'm working on. Game doesn't crash on me. So the mod is called Dynasties of Dune. For those of you who know Dune, that name might give you a good idea of what it's about. Note that this is pre-alpha, so there is still a lot of work done on the mod. It's not close to being finished. I'm just doing some pre-alpha testing to get some, I guess, feedback, get a feel of how the mod is. I may have to change numbers for different values, and there are still a lot of things to be added. They're not going to be added yet. Will be added over time. And there are a lot of things that are still missing, like for example these productions. And right now we only have 4 factions, but there are more factions. It's just starting with 4 factions is a good place to start, because that means you can have 4 factions playing at the same time. And right now each faction have their own unique traits, and they have their families. And what I'm gonna check is whether or not some are powerful. Something tells me some of these are gonna be too strong. Like for example, House Harkonnen, the +2 civics per turn for all cities seems really strong, especially they have that's good. I was worried that they would have family. Is it would have the statesman family, which would give even more civic, and there's a reason for that. Anyways, I'll talk about each faction. So Harkonnen, less unit consumption, so they could field larger forces. They get more civics to show their production. The ruthlessness allowed them to be more productive. I was tempted to add discontent, but I feel like these should be only buffs and not negatives. And then House Atreides, the more laws you have, the more money you bring in. Their range units start out stronger, have Homeland Guardian, defending your own territory. House Carino, melee units become very powerful, and their specialty is just having a lot of money. Freeman, so there are new resources. This is local material, it's not stone. Using the icon. Also they get plus 25% local materials. They get desert survival. More on actually. You probably won't see this come into action, I don't think. But more on that if we get to it. And +1 fatigue limit. And then we have all the different families. Intriguers, we also have a new intel resource. And we have early espionage project. 100 intel. Intel doesn't have any uses yet, but there will be a bunch of uses. We will, well, that's the thing. There are many things to be added. And there's also oppressors. Oh yeah, this is not training anymore. This is manpower. I try to reuse as many icons as possible. And do you know that this is a collaboration? I am working on the main design. Art is not something I'm good at, so don't expect anything beautiful. All of these are done by my collaborator. I don't know if my collaborator wants to be named, so I'm not gonna say it. I'm just saying this is a group project. So Oppressor focuses on manpower. War Master aims for more experience, getting more units from the start. And oh yeah, tribes are also changed. That's something else I want to check. Magnets, just more money. And then we have benefactors, more discontent reduction, more culture, more citizens, adventures, more order, exploration units. So scouts are exploration units, and then scout ornithopter. Ooh, that is something. So I will have to make notes during these. Don't mind me if I start typing away because my whole purpose is to make new notes so that I can know what I need to change. Like for example, change scout ornithopter from adventures on founded. So originally the idea was for ornithopter to come out sooner, but like to take into account of the gameplay, I decided to push it a bit later, so I'm gonna have to change that. I'm not sure how it's gonna be changed, but we'll see. And then we have scientists that gives science for urban specialists. The family seat city gets plus 25% is not insignificant. It just means you have to focus a lot of science on the city and you get random tech, which is pretty good. The statesman is more civics. Civics will play a pretty big role. And then we also have a devotion. So yeah, devotion will be involved with the religion. That's and raiders. Uh, this is their fuel. Fuel will be used for a bunch of things. But that's also it's kind of like Intel. Like I have plans, but we haven't gotten that far. Okay, let's try house hard coded because I have a feeling. And we also have a map script called Archipelago. More work will be done on the map script. It's just not the focus at the moment. I guess the purpose of this video, will I even get into gameplay? It depends on how long it takes for me to explain everything. I don't have a script in front of me. I'm just trying to discuss a bunch of things. And oh yeah, there are lots of things changed. Alpha will be very. I mean, some things will be similar, but alpha will be very different from pre-alpha. Pre-alpha will be long. Okay, so we have completely new tech trees. It's incomplete. There are still things that need to be added. In terms of the tech tree, they are broken into, I guess, sections. There's a survival, which at the start is kind of like basic resource gathering, but eventually it goes into warfare. And then there's I memorized. Actually, I'd be surprised if I have these memorized. It's a lot of information. So yeah. So we have survival text for the first two rows. And then the wow, that was weird. Okay, the next two rows are city development. So that is more local. So when I say local, I mostly mean resources that benefits the city more, like culture. Culture is isolated to a single city. Discontent is each city have their own discontent level, and then there's also growth and all of that. And then the next one is empire development, which is these two rows, which you see that it comes after my my reasoning is that initially you're trying to build up your initial city and then afterwards you start expanding. And empire is just that it focuses on gaining more resources throughout your empire, focusing on the various resources like spice, Solaris. It's still money. Local material, off-world supplies, fuel. Probably these. Eh. Um, Manpower for sure. Yeah, Intel probably. Yeah, honestly, like devotion, manpower, intel, and all of these resources are more empire. Civics is interesting because there's the civics that you stockpile, which is global, empire wise, and then there's the civics that are producing your city that affects production, which is why I wanted to try Harkonnen because I feel like their trait is a little too strong. But anyways, and then after that, we have religion texts. I don't mind these icons. They're my temporary, very quick paint. Okay, I use GIMP, but it's like really simplified. So we have different projects, and then we have theology. Oh yeah, religion is gonna be quite different between this mod and Old World, because Old World it has like 3 theologies, and it doesn't have like it's fairly simple. I mean, yes, there are a lot of nuances, a lot of small little details that you sprinkle on is really good, but I want something that's a bit more complex. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's going to be more complex and there will be a lot more things tied to religion. And there will be a lot more things added afterwards. And then there's also or I just realized. Okay, so my idea is that survival, city development, development, faith development, and then for this last few rows, I don't think it's gonna fill up, but I want to have unique text. And fortunately, Old World um, made it fairly easy to do this. So eventually, what I want is uh, factions to have unique text. Now, maybe certain texts are available to 2 or 3 factions, but it's not available to all factions. I'm still working on the brainstorming part, but eventually there will be certain things that will show up here that will specifically benefit one faction. Looking at the time, I probably won't get to gameplay. I'll probably make a save, and my next video will be the actual gameplay as I test things out. I will be Odds are between each of my gameplay sessions, I will probably make tweaks regarding things that I'm like, okay, that needs to. Anyways, what else to talk about? Oh yeah, resources. All the resources have been renamed and redone. Let's set up a city first. Trigger Intel doesn't do anything for me. Let's go for oppressors. And then we have the vortex. So desert survival provides you with. Oh yeah, by the way, this is no longer called growth; it's called water. A lot of the descriptions still need to be changed. That will be at a later date. So desert survival provides your basic projects. Basically, if you need water, which growth, I just call it water. If you need civics in that city, or you need fuel. And the exploration unlocks more scouts. So if you want to explore more, it's not a bad idea, and I'll explain in a moment why. And then we have symbols, which is your main source. So festival reduces discontent. It also reduces your water, but I've made it so discontent is not something you want to get out of control. In Old World, you could get away with quite a bit of discontent before you have to tackle it. I don't want that to be the case here. And an early monument is your earliest source of culture. And you want, at least for the cities you want to develop, higher culture is very important. And then we have mysticism, which unlocks your first source of devotion. I actually don't know what to. Let's go with desert survival. Sure. So you start with a scout. That's it. There's no workers because you have no improvements unlocked. I mean, in theory, wonders might be available. Right? I don't remember. Anyways, oh yeah, about that point about why you want more scouts. So it has been reworked regarding what you can get for harvesting different resources, and there are like they all been renamed. Some of the images might have to change. Some of them may have to be redone, but that's a later thing. So we have like minerals that provide local material. We have date that provides Solaris. We have coffee that provides Solaris. And then you have like um San Urbana. I know I was looking at the code. I'm like, yeah, these things need to be changed, but yeah. Basically all of those have been reworked. And there's also so there's no longer seas. For those of you who know about Arrakis, the desert planet, and what happens is with the desert, your units can't cross safely. Uh, I'm still trying to figure out the best mechanic when it comes to spices and sandworms, but that will have to come later. There are so many things to work on. This is what happens when you work on the overhaul map. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is, once you get more scouts, you're able to harvest more of these resources, and these could add up, right? Like 10 local material doesn't seem like much, but when you start with 4, I don't know why you're starting with 4. Ah, yes, yes, your base and the citizen, and the more citizen you have, the more you get, and also depending on what your resources. Yes, okay, that's why. Got it. So assuming you have a decent amount of territory, having scouts going around to harvest is certainly not a bad idea. And then each city, once they're built, you get started with a militia. Militia costs manpower, consumes manpower, and they use water. Probably reword that eventually. And then here's what I meant about civics, or Harkonnen might be a bit too strong. So just like in Old World, each city have their own civics that they produce per turn, and use those civics to essentially complete projects. So the way the early game goes is that there will be a lot of projects and not very many. Well, there won't be any improvements. So if you can improve your project, the amount of civics you have in your city, you're able to construct more of these, and your city will be, better developed. And as of the moment, this is by design. Um, get -5 base so that early on you only get +1 water, and if you want to grow at a reasonable rate, you will have to either get lucky with what resources you have within your territory, or just have to focus on projects that give you more water. And then culture is also, oh yeah, the caps are also different. You get to developing, you need 150. All of them have been increased by like 50%. Don't ask me what is off the top of my head. Like waiting 150 turns for developing is a long time. Maybe you don't want to neglect your code. And then there's discontent, which I am using the good difficulty AI is using. Yeah, there are still so many things I want to add, but not enough time. And ooh, that is another thing. So I was looking at the capital science rate. So that's something I want to get a feel for. Like, how fast do I want the text to go by? Because if, well, as someone who's been making this, I know that none of these projects provide any science, and even scientists uh require like only plus 25% boost, which isn't very much if you're not producing very much to begin with. So don't know if that will become a +4 or not if I had that boost, which will actually be fairly big. Yeah, maybe I'll decrease that. But anyways, I probably won't be tweaking any numbers until afterwards, until I get to the next, get to the first playthrough, which is not gonna be this video. So yeah, as those right now, there's no way of acquiring spice. There will be. There will be the introduction of harvesters. Uh, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to spawn spice on desert tiles. And I'm also not sure how I'm gonna approach things like sandworm, but they're too determined. Yeah, maybe I'll just have like sandworms spawning and probably we'll see. And then maybe slightly unrealistic, but gameplays wise, if there are too many sandworms, the player may have to do what they could to kill some of them off so their harvesters can gather spices. And maybe Freeman has a different way. This is where having unique text is nice, because I could say all these other factions have this tech that unlocks the harvesters, and meanwhile Freeman will have this other way of gathering, right? So it does unlock a lot of opportunities. So right now there's no way of getting spice, but the idea is that spice will be very valuable, and they might play other roles. Um, Dolores is just money. Local materials. Okay, so local materials will be fairly abundant on the planet, and Freeman being the natives, they have a way of acquiring more of it, and for a lot of projects and stuff, local material is certainly needed. Now, off-world supplies is going to be interesting, because as the term implies, off-world supplies don't exist on Arrakis. So my hope is to make it so that you need to trade for off-world supplies. You might have to build certain improvements that bring a certain amount of off-world supplies, and off-world supplies will be used for very special, maybe certain improvements or wonders or units. So while local material will be abundant, off-world supplies will be something else that if you want to focus on, I'm hoping you get rewarded for it by having access to certain units, build projects, improvements that requires it, but they are much more powerful than their local material counterparts. And then fuel. So for fuel, I mean the ornithopters are definitely going to use those, and then there will be a lot of projects and certain improvements that will use feel. So it's not something you want to neglect because it will be in high demand for a lot of things. But depending on the faction, you may not need as much feel as you. Order, you will get less order than old world. That's the current state. I don't know if that will stay the case. But my plans is that make order still valuable. That's something I really like about old world. Like order really restricts on what you can and cannot, or at least you have to make decisions on how much you can do. This will probably change, like how much you can get, but until I get more things into the game, it's gonna be hard for me to gauge whether there's enough. Uh, Science is also interesting. I want there to be a somewhat even footing between all factions. That's one thing I kind of don't like about Old World. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just something I dislike, and it's how depending on your faction, you might get very far ahead in technology, which can be a big boon in some ways. Now I know that for old world they did a lot so that yes you're ahead in technology, but there are other flaws so that you can't fully take advantage of it. But for me, I want science to be something that's more controlled. Well, we'll see how that goes. Uh, Civics. You have the local civics that's used for production, which is extremely important for city development, and you do have to pick, right? You go for projects that give you more water, so you could get more citizens. You use it to get more manpower because you need it for war. You need it for culture to get more culture levels. You want to get more civics so you can speed up how quickly you can get projects. There will be a lot of decision making on what you pick. We'll see how I balance those. Be a rough one. Devotion. So, how much do I want to talk about? Okay, yes. One thing I can talk about. So for all the, so there are four religions. There may be more later. I'm not sure. If I'm gonna add more or if that's. But the idea is that each religion has a holy site, and each of these holy sites can be built from the start, but you need local materials and you need devotion. 400 devotion, 400 local materials. And if you build it, you get the religion, they act like wonders. So that's what you compete for. You try to get as much devotion as possible early on, and then there are four religions. Town with it. Next, manpower. Manpower will be mostly used for military. Uh, but they will also be used for certain projects, improvements, to show that you need a labor force construct those, right? And then finally, Intel. Currently, it doesn't do anything, but it will play a big role. My my plan is involved with yeah, there are certain things I want to do, but I don't want to spoil it. But let me just say that there are certain things I want to do with Intel, and certain factions would benefit from a lot more Intel because they're gonna have more tools at their disposal. Okay. Currently these. Oh yeah, I forgot to. So import members should be locked behind. I don't want them to be available from the start. And I have special plans for these. And then next, I don't think I'll be able to cover everything because Yeah, I could. I don't want to spoil everything. And then the last thing I'll talk about for this video is about ratings. So, um, wisdom now gives you intel. Courage, and I don't have this memorized. So discipline still gives Solaris. Courage gives manpower, and charisma gives I think civics. So the only difference is wisdom. I mean, I've also changed the scaling of them. And regarding how generals and all of those things, those will be changed later on in addition to as ambassador, chancellor, and spy master. Those are in the works. But instead of wisdom giving research, which depending on your leader could give you lead here, I decided to make it intel, and honestly, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you do want to go down the intel route once all the tools are available. Once it's available. But anyways, I think that's a acceptable acceptable intro for this pre-alpha. I'm probably gonna uh publish these weekly. Next one will be a gameplay, and then after that, I'll tweak some numbers, make some changes, add more things. We'll see if I share those or not. But yeah. Anyways, I'm just gonna end the video here. I know it's not very long, but at the same time, I don't want to spoil too much, and I feel like I'm not gonna get too much gameplay done, so I might as well just treat this as an intro. Like, this is the mod, this is what we have. There are lots of things still missing. But anyways, I am going to end the video here. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a good one.